Tenants who want to escape at night, we're saying that law, even if you escape at night, or if you don't even give you notice.
What's good, family? Welcome to SN Media. Kindly subscribe for more updates. SN Media is here to answer all your possible questions relating the tenant and landlord bill. MPs passed the bill which will regulate the relationship between landlords and tenants. Parliament passed the Landlord and Tenants Bill 2021 that permits the landlords to access the tenants' premises and take possession of the property to recover accumulated rent arrears. This has, however, been conditioned on the landlord issuing a notice to the tenants who default on rental payment, provided that where the default shall continue for a period of more than 30 days, the landlord shall be entitled to re-enter the premises and take possession thereof, in the presence of the area local council officials and the police, without prejudice to the right to recover the rent arrears, the bill states. The Act restricts payment of more than 3 months in rent in advance for 1 month, unless the tenant opts to do so in writing. Landlords are prohibited from increasing rent at a rate of more than 10% annually. Landlords are required to give notice of 90 days in case of rent increment. A landlord must always provide a tenant with enough notice before an increase in rent. A minimum of 1 month's notice must be given if you pay rent weekly or monthly. For a yearly tenancy, 6 months' notice must be provided. The right to have your deposit returned at the end of the tenancy, provided that you meet the terms of your tenancy agreement. The right to be protected from unfair rent and unfair eviction. The right to have a written agreement if you have a fixed term tenancy of more than 3 years. The law permits evicting a tenant who does not follow the terms of the tenancy agreement. However, unless otherwise specified in the tenancy agreement, the landlord must give a tenant a 6-month notice to vacate the premises. A landlord shall not increase rent at a rate of more than 10% annually or such other percentage as may be prescribed by the minister. A landlord cannot refuse to rent to persons in a protected class. A landlord cannot provide different services or facilitate to tenants in a protected class or require a larger deposit or treat late rental payments differently. A landlord cannot end a tenancy for a discriminatory reason. An eviction is illegal if there is no valid court order provided to you by your landlord. The court order typically gives you 14 days notice before you have to leave your home. This means your landlord cannot simply throw you out on the same day they serve you with a flat eviction notice. So let's start with the good news. No, a landlord cannot evict you for no reason. Eviction is a legal process, and your landlord saying they want to evict you without a legal reason to back it up is not going to be able to get that eviction approved in court. Your lease ends and your landlord does not want to renew. Rent can be increased as long as the minimum 60-day written notice is given to the tenant. Rent can only be increased once in a 12-month period after the minimum 60-day written notice is given to the tenant. A tenancy agreement should contain tenant's identity and address for the landlord, the property address, the commencement and termination dates of the tenancy stroke lease, the rent amount, additional charges such as legal fees, agency commissions, security deposit, service charges. The tenant agreement should contain the tenant and landlord obligations. What can one do in a rented house? Entry to the property, having friends and guests visit, rent increases, requesting repairs, seek help if you're wrongly evicted, after the property in any way, use the property as a business, sublet the property. When can a tenant become an owner? According to the law of adverse possession, if a person continues to be in possession of a property for 12 years, they are granted the ownership rights to the property. In simple terms, if a tenant continues to occupy a unit for 12 years without any interruption from the owner, they get owner status for the property. What can you do if a tenant refuses to vacate? File an eviction suit. The tenant may refuse to vacate the rented property after receiving the court's eviction notice and contest the eviction. In this case, the landlord can hire a rental property lawyer to file an eviction suit against the tenant. And therefore, the Vice Chairperson of the Committee on Physical Infrastructure, Honorable Robert Kasolo, who represented the report on the bill, said that the bill makes it mandatory for the landlord and tenant to enter a tenancy agreement before occupying a premise. The lawmakers also passed a provision in the law where the landlord issues a 60 days notice to the increase in rent charges. Increment on the rate should not exceed 10% of the rent remitted at when landlord considers to revise the rent charges. The House also passed a provision that the currency of transaction between landlord and tenant shall be Ugandan shillings. Kasolo said that the shilling has continuously depreciated against the dollar. The bill grants the tenant the possibility to agree with the landlord on paying an amount equivalent to the dollars. This therefore resolves the quotation that was previously between landlords and tenants, as former demanded that their clients remit rent in dollars. The new law will also see penalties for landlords who are found liable of unlawful evicting their tenants. This conditions the landlord to compensate a tenant 3 months equivalent of rent dues. The new law will also see a restriction of increment on rent being put to not more than 10% annually. Furthermore, the law purposes that notice for increment of rent should be issued 60 days before its implementation.